The desert was quiet that night. The wind blew slowly over the empty sand, and the stars above looked cold and endless. In that silence, a single streak of light cut across the sky. It moved fast, too fast for a shooting star. The light burned brighter and brighter until it exploded with a deep echo that rolled across the dunes. Miles away, a man named Ethan Cole saw it from the porch of his small cabin. He was a former soldier who had left the cities to live alone. His days were simple now, repairing machines, fixing old trucks, and trying to forget the war. But when he saw the explosion in the sky, something inside him woke up again, the part of him that had seen danger before. Ethan grabbed his flashlight, slung his old rifle over his shoulder, and got into his Jeep. The desert was dark, but the glow in the distance showed him where to go. When he reached the crash site, the air smelled like burnt metal and ozone. A strange mist floated over the ground. The object had carved a long scar into the sand. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a meteor. The thing looked alive, its metal skin shifting like it was breathing. Ethan stepped closer, his boots crunching softly. He could feel warmth coming from the wreck. A soft light blinked from inside, then went dark. Suddenly he heard a small sound, a weak voice, almost like a whisper. "Help. Please." Ethan froze. The voice came from inside the wreck. He forced the door open and stopped in shock. Inside was a woman, but not a human woman. Her skin had a faint silver glow. Her hair floated as if underwater, and her eyes shimmered like liquid light. In her arms, she held a small child wrapped in a torn silver blanket. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice low. The woman looked at him with tired eyes. "Please, take me as your concubine," she said in broken English. "Save my daughter." Ethan blinked, not sure if he heard right. "Your what?" She tried to speak again, but coughed weakly. Blood, dark blue, not red, ran from the corner of her mouth. The child stirred and cried softly. Ethan didn't understand what was going on, but he knew one thing. The woman and her child were dying. He lifted them both from the wreck and carried them to his Jeep. The metal under his hands was warm, almost alive. As he drove back to his cabin, he kept looking at the strange woman. Her clothes were torn armor, marked with symbols that glowed faintly when touched by the light. When they reached the cabin, Ethan laid her on his bed and gave the child water. The little girl drank it silently, her big silver eyes staring at him without fear. "Thank you," the woman whispered. "They will come soon. You must hide us." "Who?" Ethan asked. She looked at him with pain and fear. "The hunters. They follow the royal blood. They will burn this world if they find me." Ethan didn't know what to believe. He checked the window. Nothing but empty desert and cold stars. He turned back, but she had fainted. The child curled beside her, clutching her mother's hand. Ethan sat down, trying to think. He had seen strange things during the war, experimental ships, secret weapons, but nothing like this. Still, something about the woman's face, the way she begged not for herself but for her daughter, made him stay. He lit the old heater and waited. Outside, the wind began to change. A low hum rolled through the air, deep and unnatural. Ethan stepped outside. In the distance, he saw 3 lights moving slowly across the desert sky. Not stars, machines. They flew in perfect silence, scanning the ground with blue beams. Drones. Ethan's heart raced. If those things were looking for her, they would find the crash site soon. He went back inside, grabbed a heavy tarp, and covered the windows. The woman stirred and whispered something in her own language, soft musical words that made the air vibrate. The lights in the room flickered for a second, then dimmed. Ethan looked at her, realizing she had somehow cut the power signal. The drones passed overhead. Their blue beams swept across the cabin but didn't stop. They moved on, vanishing into the night. When the silence returned, Ethan turned toward the bed. The woman's eyes were half open now, glowing faintly. "You saved us," she said softly. "For that I owe you my life." Ethan shook his head. "Just rest. We'll figure this out in the morning." But before he could say more, she whispered again, her voice trembling. "They will not stop. The Dominion will come. And when they do," she looked at the sleeping child and then at him, "they will burn your world to find me." Ethan stared at her, not knowing whether to believe or to fear. Outside, in the cold desert night, the last drone turned in the sky. Its sensors caught a faint energy trail leading straight toward his cabin, and with that, the nightmare truly began. The night felt longer than ever. The desert wind howled outside Ethan's cabin. carrying the sound of the passing drones fading into the distance. Inside, the strange woman slept, her silver skin shining faintly under the weak light of the lantern. The child lay beside her, breathing softly. Ethan sat near the window, holding his rifle, watching the horizon. His mind was full of questions. Who were these aliens? What did she mean by the Dominion? And why did she call herself his concubine? When the first light of dawn crept through the cracks of the wooden walls, he stood and made some coffee. The smell filled the air. That's when he heard her voice again. Weak but clear. Human. Ethan turned. She was sitting up now, one hand on her chest, the other holding the child. Her silver eyes looked calmer, though her body still trembled. "You shouldn't move," Ethan said. "You're hurt." She looked around slowly, her gaze landing on the steaming mug. "What is that smell?" "Coffee," he said, handing her the cup carefully. She took it, sniffed and smiled faintly. "It smells like peace," she whispered, then drank a little. For a moment, the silence between them felt strange but peaceful. Then Ethan spoke again. "You said they'd burn this world, why?" She looked at him and her expression changed, fear mixed with sadness. "Because I carry something they want, something that can end them. Or begin them again." Ethan frowned. "Who are you really?" "My name is Lyria, daughter of the House of Vontar. I am, or was, a princess." Ethan blinked. "A princess, you?" Her lips curved slightly, but her eyes stayed cold. "Once before my world burned. The Zathar Dominion destroyed my people. My daughter and I are the last." She touched the small girl beside her. "Her name is Kaelri. She carries the last seed of my kind." Ethan sat down across from her. "Why come here? Why Earth?" Lyria looked up, her eyes glowing faintly. "Because this world hides in silence. No warp gates, no signal traces. Your kind still live with dirt, sky, and water. It is the one place they will not look easily." Her words made Ethan uneasy. "You said something last night. About being my concubine, why?" Lyria lowered her eyes, embarrassed. "In my language, the word means protector bond. When one seeks protection beyond their kind, a bond must be made. It hides the heart from enemy senses. If I bond with you, they cannot find us through the psychic trails." Ethan leaned back, confused. "So you want me to—" "Not what you think," she interrupted softly. "It is a mental bond, no touch, no shame, only a promise." Ethan looked into her eyes and saw something honest there, fear, hope, trust, things he hadn't seen in a long time. "What happens if I say no?" he asked quietly. She looked down at her daughter. "Then they find us. And when they do, they will destroy this planet to erase our bloodline." Ethan took a deep breath. He had fought in wars, faced death many times, but this was different. This was bigger than him. Still, the thought of letting a mother and her child die didn't sit right with him. "All right," he said finally. "Tell me what to do." Lyria's eyes softened. She reached her hand out, trembling. "Place your hand over mine. Do not break the link until the light fades." Ethan hesitated, then did as she said. Her skin felt cold, almost electric. The air around them thickened, and a faint hum filled the room. Suddenly, images flashed through his mind. Bright cities floating in the sky, golden ships, screams, fire, and then darkness. He saw Lyria standing alone amid ruins, holding her child as explosions lit the horizon. Then he saw himself, through her eyes. A human man, rough, strong, broken inside but still standing. The light around their hands brightened, wrapping both of them in a soft blue glow. Ethan felt her fear, her pain, her strength. Then as quickly as it came, it was gone. The room went quiet. The lantern flickered. Lyria opened her eyes slowly. "It is done," she whispered. "The bond will hide us from them. For now." Ethan stepped back, his heart racing. "What was that?" "You saw what I saw," she said. "Now you carry a part of me. You are my protector and I am yours." Ethan rubbed his forehead. "You're saying I'm part alien now?" Lyria smiled weakly. "No, human. You are something far rarer than that." Before Ethan could reply, the little girl stirred and opened her eyes. She looked at him, tilted her head, and said softly, "Papa." Ethan froze. Lyria smiled sadly. "She feels the bond too. You are part of our story now." Ethan wanted to argue, but before he could, a strange sound came from outside. A low, vibrating hum. He rushed to the window. In the distance, 3 glowing dots hovered above the horizon. Lyria's face went pale. "No, they found the crash site." Ethan grabbed his rifle. "Then we better move fast." Outside, the sky began to glow red. Something massive was entering Earth's atmosphere, and so the real chase began. The night sky turned red as the alien ships entered the atmosphere. Ethan watched from the ridge near his cabin, his heart pounding. The glowing shapes in the distance were searching, moving in slow, perfect patterns, like predators sniffing for prey. Beside him, Lariah stood weak but calm. Her silver eyes reflected the red light above them. "They are tracking the energy from the crash," she said softly. "We have little time." Ethan gripped his rifle tighter. "How long before they find us?" "Minutes. Maybe less." He turned to her. "Then we need to move, now." They rushed back to the jeep where Kelry, the little girl, sat wrapped in a blanket. She looked frightened but didn't cry. Ethan lifted her gently, feeling her small arms tighten around his neck. Her skin felt warm, warmer than before, like she carried fire inside her. As the jeep roared to life, Lariah sat beside him, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "The bond we made," she said, "it links our thoughts. You may feel strange soon, hear things, see memories that are not yours." Ethan gave a short laugh. "I've seen plenty of strange things already." But as they drove deeper into the desert, he began to feel something. A pulse inside his head, faint at first, then stronger. Flashes of light. Voices that were not his own. He saw a great palace made of glass and silver. He saw Lariah standing before a throne, surrounded by soldiers in shining armor. Then the image changed. Fire, screams, explosions. Ships burning in the sky. A tall, dark figure with glowing red eyes raised a weapon. The palace fell. Lariah ran, carrying Kelry through smoke and chaos. Ethan gasped and gripped the steering wheel. The vision vanished. Lariah looked at him. "You saw it?" "Your world," Ethan whispered. "They destroyed everything." She nodded slowly. "The Zathar Dominion takes what it wants and burns the rest. We tried to resist, but they had a power we could not fight." Ethan's voice hardened. "And now they're coming here." "Yes, but they cannot see us as long as our bond holds." "Your mind shields me." Ethan glanced at her. "Why me? What's so special about humans?" Lariah hesitated, then said, "Your kind is different. The Dominion's telepaths cannot read you. Humans think in chaos, emotion, and reason together. To them it is noise, confusion, a shield made by nature itself." Ethan smirked. "Guess being stubborn finally pays off." Lariah looked at him with a faint smile. Stubbornness. Or courage. Perhaps both. The jeep climbed over a rocky hill, and from the top they could see the endless desert stretching to the horizon. Behind them, lights glowed faintly. The searchers were still far, but closing in. They stopped near an old military bunker, a relic from the last Earth War. Ethan had found it years ago while wandering the desert. "We'll be safe here for a while," he said, opening the rusted door. Inside, the air was cold and still. Dust floated in the light of his lantern. He set Kelry on a cot and gave her a blanket. The girl smiled faintly. "Papa?" she whispered again before drifting to sleep. Ethan looked at Lariah. "She keeps calling me that." Lariah's expression softened. "The bond connects us all now. She feels your heart." It reminds her of her father. Ethan didn't ask more. He could see the pain in Lariah's eyes, the loss, the memories she tried to hide. Hours passed in silence. Lariah sat near the wall, her head bowed, whispering strange words. The air shimmered faintly, and Ethan realized she was healing herself with energy from the bond. He watched quietly. Then, suddenly, her voice echoed inside his mind, clear like she was speaking next to him. "Ethan." He looked up. Her lips hadn't moved. "You hear me?" she asked, her voice gentle. Ethan blinked. "Inside my head?" He thought. "Yes," she replied. "This is the bond. We can speak without sound now." He took a deep breath. "That's going to take some getting used to." She smiled faintly. "You adapt quickly. Most minds would shatter from this connection." Ethan shrugged. "I've been through worse." Suddenly he heard another voice, smaller, softer. "Papa?" It was Kelry. The child's mind brushed against his, full of warmth and light. Ethan froze. "Can she hear me too?" Lariah nodded. "She is part of the bond. You are her shield now." Ethan looked at the sleeping child, a strange feeling filling his chest. He had lost many people in his life, friends, comrades, family. But this tiny alien girl trusted him completely. It stirred something deep inside him, something he thought was gone. Then from outside, a faint rumble echoed through the night. Ethan went to the door and peered out. On the horizon, a dark shape moved across the sky. Large, triangular, silent. "They're scanning again," Lariah whispered. "They will not stop." Ethan tightened his grip on the rifle. "Let them come." Lariah looked at him almost in awe. "You would fight them?" "Alone?" He met her gaze. "I don't run from bullies, human or alien." For a long moment she said nothing. Then quietly she whispered, "Perhaps the old legends were true. Perhaps humanity is the race that cannot be conquered." Ethan turned to her. "Legends?" "Yes," she said softly. "Stories told among the stars. About a species born from struggle who fear nothing, who rise from ashes again and again." Ethan smiled faintly. "Guess you'll see for yourself." Outside, lightning split the sky as the alien ship descended lower. The desert wind screamed. The hunt had begun again, and this time Ethan wasn't just protecting strangers. He was protecting his family. The desert was quiet again, but the silence didn't bring peace. It was the silence before a storm. Ethan sat near the bunker's entrance, cleaning his rifle. The metal door was sealed, the air thick and heavy. Inside, Lariah was drawing strange symbols in the dust, glowing lines that pulsed softly like living light. Little Calry slept nearby, her tiny hands clutching the blanket tight. Ethan glanced over. "What are you doing?" Lariah didn't look up. "Hiding us. These runes bend light and sound. They will mask our life signs." Ethan nodded slowly. "And if that doesn't work, then we run," she said simply. He didn't reply. He knew running wouldn't be enough. He had seen the ships in the sky, fast, silent, and hunting like wolves. They wouldn't stop until they found what they were looking for. As the hours passed, the temperature dropped. The night wind howled through the vents, carrying sand into the corners. Ethan checked his old radar screen, a relic from his military days. The signal flickered, then went dark. "Jamming," he muttered. "Someone's close." Lariah's eyes opened wide. "They've found the wreck." Ethan grabbed his gear. "We need to move before they track the heat trail." Lariah shook her head. "If we leave now, they'll sense us. We must wait until their scanners pass." Ethan crouched beside her, frustrated. "Wait, you said they'd burn the planet to find you." Her voice stayed calm. "I said they'd try, but fear will expose us faster than their machines." Ethan looked into her eyes, glowing faintly in the dark. Despite everything, the fear, the chaos, there was strength there. Ancient, quiet strength. Then suddenly a sound broke the silence. Footsteps. Not heavy like boots, but light and rhythmic. More than one. Ethan grabbed his rifle, motioning for Lariah to stay quiet. The sound grew louder, closer. He peeked through a crack in the bunker door. 3 figures moved through the sand. Tall, thin, wearing dark armor that shimmered under the moonlight. Their eyes glowed faintly red. They weren't human. "Zathar," Lariah whispered. Ethan's pulse raced. "How did they get down here so fast?" "They use stealth pods. They'll search by scent, not air, but energy." Ethan clenched his jaw. "Then I'll give them something to follow." Before she could stop him, he slipped outside through the side hatch, crawling low between rocks. He placed a small beacon on a dune far from the bunker, set it to emit a weak energy signal. Bait. As he turned to crawl back, a red beam swept across the sand just inches from his leg. He froze. The hunters had seen movement. They moved with unnatural grace, no sound except the hiss of their armor. One of them raised a weapon, a long black rod that hummed softly. Ethan ducked behind a rock as the weapon fired, blasting a hole through the stone. Sand exploded into the air. He rolled, aimed, and fired his rifle. 3 sharp bursts. The bullets hit one of the figures, who staggered but didn't fall. Instead, it turned its head slowly toward him, eyes burning brighter. "Great," Ethan muttered. "They're wearing power armor." He fired again, aiming at the joints. Sparks flew. This time the creature fell, its weapon slipping from its grasp. The other 2 spread out, moving like shadows. Inside the bunker, Lariah felt the bond flare with pain. She stood, panic in her voice. "Ethan, you must come back." "I'm fine." His voice came faintly through the link. "Just keeping them busy." She closed her eyes, focusing her energy. The runes on the floor brightened. The light crawled up the walls, humming with power. Calry woke, frightened. "Mama, stay close, little one," Lariah whispered. "He's protecting us." Outside, Ethan ducked behind another ridge. One hunter was closing in fast. He waited until it was close, then tossed a grenade. The explosion lit up the night. When the dust settled, only one hunter remained. But before he could reload, something hit him hard. Invisible force like a wave. He was thrown into the sand, his ears ringing. The last hunter stood over him, weapon raised. Suddenly the air shimmered. A beam of silver light shot from the bunker entrance, striking the hunter's chest. The creature screamed as its armor melted away. Loraya stood at the doorway, her hand glowing bright. "Enough," she said coldly. The hunter tried to move but froze mid-air, trapped in her invisible grip. She whispered words in her language, and the hunter's body disintegrated into dust. The wind carried the ashes away. Ethan slowly stood, dazed. "Remind me not to make you angry." Loraya turned to him, her glow fading. "You risked your life for a delay." "Why?" He shrugged. "That's what humans do. We fight even when we shouldn't." Her eyes softened. "I begin to see why your kind survives chaos." Before they could say more, Ethan's radar beeped again. This time multiple signal, far more than 3. He looked at her grimly. "They called for reinforcements." Loraya's expression darkened. "And they are not the only ones." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" She pointed toward the eastern horizon. Bright lights appeared, aircraft human-made heading their way. "The Earth military," she said. "They have found us too." Ethan stared at the sky. 2 enemies closing in from different worlds. He took a deep breath, chambered around, and looked at Loraya. "Then it's going to be a long night." The night sky burned with light. Above the desert, 2 fleets of death moved closer, alien hunters from the stars and human warplanes from Earth. The air itself felt alive with tension. Inside the bunker, Ethan stood by the door watching the radar flicker. Red dots filled the screen. Some were alien, some were human, but both were closing in. "We're trapped," he muttered. Loraya stood beside him, her silver hair glowing faintly. "No, there is still one path left, but it will not be easy." Ethan looked at her, tired and angry. "You mean running again? You've seen the sky. There's nowhere to run." Loraya's voice was calm but heavy. "If we stay, the Dominion will take us. If we surrender, your people will lock us away. Either way, the end is the same." Her words hit hard because he knew they were true. He had fought enough wars to know what fear could do to people. If the military found out about her, on a living alien princess, they wouldn't see a person. They'd see a weapon. Ethan slammed his fist against the metal wall. "There has to be another way." Loraya's eyes glowed softly as she placed a hand on his arm. "You are human. You always believe there is another way. That is why I trusted you." Ethan looked down at her hand, feeling the warmth from the bond they shared. "You trusted me because you had no choice." Loraya didn't argue. Instead, she turned toward her sleeping daughter. Kelri lay peacefully, her small face glowing faintly under the blue light from the runes. "She carries the starseed," Loraya said quietly. "It is a code, the last light of my people. In her blood lies everything the Dominion fears." Ethan frowned. "A code, you mean? Like technology?" "More than that. It is the living memory of our civilization. Knowledge, DNA, history, everything we were locked inside her." He stared at the child. "And they'll kill her for it?" Loraya's voice cracked. "They already killed millions for it." The bunker trembled suddenly as a shockwave passed through the ground. The sound of distant explosions echoed. Ethan looked at the radar again. 2 red signals had just vanished. "They're fighting each other," he said. "Yes," Loraya whispered. "The Dominion and your military have met." Outside, the horizon flashed like lightning as human jets fired missiles at alien craft. The sky turned white with energy fire. Ethan could feel the vibrations through the floor. He looked back at Loraya. "If your people had that kind of power, how did they lose?" She closed her eyes. "Because we forgot what it meant to fight for something real. We had science, machines, and power, but no heart." She looked at him. "Your kind fights from the soul. That is why you are dangerous to them." Ethan gave a tired laugh. "Dangerous? We're the ones hiding in a hole." "But you're still planning to fight," she said softly. "That's what makes you human." Before he could reply, a loud bang shook the bunker. Dust fell from the ceiling. The main door shuttered. Someone, or something, and was outside. Ethan grabbed his rifle and signaled Loraya to stay back. The door burst open, metal screeching, and 3 soldiers in black armor stormed in. Human soldiers. "Drop your weapon," one shouted. Ethan raised his hand slowly. Easy, soldier. We're not your enemy. The soldier stepped forward, gun aimed straight at Lariah. Then explained the alien energy readings. Lariah stood still, her eyes calm. We seek only safety. The soldier hesitated. Her voice was strange, beautiful, almost soothing. But then his radio crackled. Command confirms target identified. Apprehend the alien and the child. Ethan moved instantly. He knocked the rifle aside and shoved the soldier back. The room filled with shouting. One of the men fired, and the bullet hit the wall just above Calry's cot. The child screamed. Lariah's eyes flared silver. In one motion, she raised her hand. The air shimmered, and all three soldiers froze mid-step, their weapons floating from their hands. Stop! Ethan yelled. They're just following orders. Lariah's voice was cold. So were the ones who destroyed my world. Ethan stepped between her and the soldiers. If you kill them, we'll lose everything. For a long moment, she didn't move. The glow in her eyes flickered, then dimmed. The soldiers dropped to the ground, gasping. Ethan helped one to his feet. Get out. Tell your commander the alien isn't your enemy. The Dominion is. The soldier stared at him in confusion, then stumbled out, dragging his partners. Lariah watched them leave, her face unreadable. You risked your life again. For them. Ethan turned toward her. Because if we start killing each other, then they've already won. Outside, the explosions grew louder. A shadow fell across the desert. One of the Dominion ships was descending, massive and dark, covering the stars. Lariah whispered, They've found us. Ethan picked up his weapon. Then let's make sure they remember what humans can do. Lariah stepped beside him, her eyes glowing once more. Then we fight. Between two worlds, together. And as the ground shook beneath them, the desert became a battlefield. One where a soldier of Earth and a princess of the stars would stand side by side against the darkness. The ground shook as fire rained from the sky. The Dominion ship had broken through Earth's defenses, a black shadow that covered the stars. Its engines hummed with cold power, filling the night with a deep, vibrating sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Inside the bunker, Ethan loaded his last magazine and checked the comlink. Static. No response from the soldiers he had saved earlier. The military lines were gone, destroyed or jammed. He turned to Lariah, who was helping her daughter, Calry, into a protective capsule built from the remains of her ship. The small girl's silver eyes were wide with fear. Is she safe in there? Ethan asked. For a short time, Lariah said softly. But if the Dominion takes her, nothing in this world will be safe again. Ethan looked at the ceiling as dust rained down from the vibrations. They're landing nearby, Lariah nodded. Their leader has come. The one who destroyed my home. Ethan tightened his grip on the rifle. Then this ends tonight. Lariah stepped closer, her voice almost a whisper. You don't have to fight them, Ethan. This isn't your war. He looked at her, tired, scarred, but still standing. It is now. Something in his tone made her heart tremble. For the first time, she saw not just a soldier, but a man who had lost everything and still refused to give up. The bond between them glowed faintly, warm and alive. She could feel his fear and his courage. He could feel her sorrow and her strength. Then the light outside changed. The Dominion ship's ramp opened, casting a beam of crimson energy across the sand. Figures descended, tall, armored beings with faces like living metal. At the center of them walked a creature taller than the rest, its eyes burning like molten fire. Lariah's breath caught. Zorath, Ethan followed her gaze. That's him? Yes, he was once my father's general. Now he serves only power. The air trembled as the alien army spread across the desert. Ethan and Lariah stepped out of the bunker together, the night wind tearing at their clothes. Zorath's voice boomed through the air, not from his mouth but directly into their minds. Princess Lariah of Vontar, the Dominion demands your surrender. Give us the child and your death will be merciful. Lariah raised her head high, her eyes glowing silver. You destroyed my world. You murdered my people. You will have nothing from me. The alien laughed, a deep, echoing sound that made the sand itself shake. You hide behind a primitive creature of dirt and bone? You think this human can save you? Ethan stepped forward, rifle ready. Try me. Zorath's red eyes turned toward him. You are brave for an insect. Ethan smiled faintly. No, I'm human. There's a difference. Before the alien could answer, Ethan opened fire, The bullets bounced off Zorath's armor, but he didn't stop. He charged forward, dodging plasma blasts, throwing grenades that burst into smoke and fire. The Dominion soldiers advanced, but Ethan fought like a man possessed, fast, furious, fearless. Lyraya watched, her heart pounding. Through the bond, she felt his pain, his will. Every move screamed defiance. Every shot shouted no surrender. Zorath raised his hand, gathering energy into a sphere of red light. He fired it straight at Ethan. Lyraya screamed and thrust her hands forward. The bond flared. Blue light met red, and the world exploded in brightness. The ground split open. The Dominion soldiers stumbled back, shielding their eyes. When the light faded, Ethan was on his knees, barely breathing, smoke rising from his armor. Lyraya ran to him, falling beside him. "You fool," she whispered, tears in her eyes.
"Why did you fight him alone?"
He smiled weakly. "Because that's what we do. We fight for what matters," Zorath roared, lifting his weapon again. But this time something else stirred. Kaelri's capsule cracked open and a blinding light poured out. The little girl stepped forward, glowing from head to toe. Her voice was soft but strong. "Stop!" The Dominion army froze. The wind itself stopped moving. The stars dimmed, Lyraya gasped. "The starseed? It's awakening." Ethan struggled to his feet, shielding the child. "What's happening?" "The code inside her, it's connecting with your world," Lyraya whispered. "Earth is responding to her power." Zorath screamed in rage and fired again, but the beam never reached her. It dissolved in the air. The energy rebounded, striking his own soldiers. Kaelri looked up at the alien leader, her voice echoing like 100 voices in one. "You hurt my mother. You hurt my people. No more." A wave of light burst from her body, spreading across the desert like a sunrise. The Dominion soldiers fell to their knees as their armor turned to dust. Zorath's roar turned into silence. When the light faded, nothing was left but ash. Ethan fell to one knee, exhausted. The ground still shimmered faintly where the starseed's light had touched. Lyraya lifted Kaelri into her arms, tears in her eyes. "She saved us all." Ethan looked up at the sky. The great ship above was retreating, damaged, powerless, fleeing back into space. He smiled faintly. "Looks like humans weren't so helpless after all." Lyraya turned to him, her eyes full of warmth. "No, Ethan. Humanity is the strongest force I have ever seen. Not because of weapons, but because of heart." As dawn broke over the desert, the first rays of sunlight touched their faces. The war wasn't over yet, but something greater had begun. A new alliance. A new hope. Born not from power, but from choice. The first light of morning spilled across the desert, washing away the smoke and fire from the battle. The ground still shimmered faintly with traces of the starseed's power. The air smelled of dust and burned metal, but also of peace, the kind of silence that comes after chaos finally ends. Ethan stood among the ruins, his uniform torn, his face streaked with ash. The great Dominion ship was gone, vanishing into the stars like a wounded beast. Only drifting pieces of black metal remained, falling quietly into the sand. Beside him, Lyraya held her daughter Kaelri close. The little girl slept in her arms, glowing softly, her breathing calm. Her power had saved the planet and nearly destroyed her. Ethan turned to Lyraya. "She'll be all right?" Lyraya nodded weakly. "The energy is fading. She just needs rest and time." The starseed protected her. He sighed with relief. "Good, because I was getting tired of saving the universe every 5 minutes." Lyraya smiled faintly. "And yet you never stopped." The wind picked up, brushing through her silver hair. For the first time since he had met her, she looked peaceful, not a fleeing princess, not a frightened mother, just a woman who had finally survived. They stood in silence, watching the sunrise paint the sky gold. Then, in the distance, they heard engines, human helicopters. The Earth military was coming. Ethan raised his rifle, then lowered it. "They'll want answers." Lyraya looked at the approaching aircraft. "Will they see us as friends or threats?" Ethan shrugged. "Depends who they talk to first." The helicopters landed nearby, kicking up clouds of sand. A group of soldiers emerged, weapons raised. At their front was General Harris, a man Ethan knew from his old service days, a hard, calculating leader. "Cole," Harris called out. "Stand down." "Step away from the alien." Ethan didn't move. "She's not your enemy, sir," Harris frowned. "Then what do you call the lights we just saw from orbit?" That blast could have cracked the atmosphere. Ethan stepped closer. It didn't because she stopped it. Her daughter stopped it. They saved us, the general's eyes narrowed. You expect me to believe that? Liraya took a step forward, her tone calm but strong. Believe or not, General, your world still exists because of her. We came seeking peace, not war. Something in her voice made the man hesitate. He lowered his weapon slightly. If that's true, then we'll need to talk, and properly. In a secure location. Ethan moved between them. No cages, no labs. You treat them as allies or you'll deal with me. Harris stared at him for a long moment, then nodded. Fine, for now. The soldier stood down. The sun rose higher, and for the first time since the crash, there was no gunfire, no roar of engines, no screams. Just wind and light. Liraya turned to Ethan. Your people will not trust easily. Neither did I, he said with a small smile. Guess we'll teach them. She looked at him quietly, her eyes soft. You changed everything, Ethan. You gave me something my world had lost. What's that? Hope. Ethan looked down at Kaylee, who stirred in her mother's arms. The little girl opened her silver eyes and smiled weakly. Papa? He crouched beside her and brushed her hair gently. Yeah, little star. I'm here. Are we safe now? She asked, her voice small and tired. Ethan looked at the sky, where sunlight broke through the last traces of smoke. For now, yes. We're safe. Kaylee smiled, her glow fading softly as she drifted back to sleep. Liraya watched him with quiet emotion. She loves you as if you were her blood. Ethan shrugged, smiling faintly. Guess I am now. The bond, remember? Liraya nodded, her eyes shining. The bond. It was meant to hide us. Instead, it saved us. For a while, they just stood there, watching the world wake up again. The soldiers were setting up camp nearby, sending messages back to command. The wind carried the smell of metal and sand, but underneath it was something new. Life. Ethan looked toward the east. So what happens now? Liraya followed his gaze. Now, we build. Together. The Dominion will return one day. But next time we'll be ready, he smiled. Humans and aliens, one team. That's going to be a wild headline. She laughed softly. A sound like music in the morning air. As the sun climbed higher, a beam of light shimmered in the distance. A broken Dominion satellite burning up as it fell. Ethan watched it fade, then turned back to Liraya. Maybe that's your old world falling away, he said quietly. She looked at him, her expression peaceful. No, Ethan. That's a new one being born. They stood together as the wind carried the last smoke away. Above them, the blue sky stretched wide, clean, endless, full of promise. The age of fear was ending. The age of unity was beginning. And somewhere far beyond the stars, deep in the blackness of space, one last Dominion ship watched silently, a reminder that peace never lasts forever. But for now, on the quiet sands of Earth, a soldier, a princess, and her child stood together under the rising sun, not as enemies or strangers, but as a family. A new dawn had truly begun.